Forget what you think you know about political protest. Right now, the streets of Iran are witnessing something else entirely. A revolutionary fire that's being fueled not really by ideology, but by just absolute and total economic ruin. We are talking about a systemic financial failure that has pushed one of the world's most enduring theocracies, well, right to the brink. Okay, let's unpack this for you.
Well, the immediate trigger was just devastating, and it happened incredibly fast. In late December 2025, Iran's currency, the Rial, it hit a record low of 1.45 million to the US dollar.
1.45 million. It's almost hard to comprehend.
It is. And to put that in perspective, that single implosion caused official inflation to surge to 42.2% almost overnight. This is the point where, financial pain becomes a full-blown humanitarian crisis.
And who was first on the streets?
Crucially, the sources highlight that the initial action came from the powerful Bazari merchants, the historical economic bedrock of the regime. But those strikes rapidly morphed into mass demands for total regime change.
So this is now the biggest unrest since 2022.
The biggest. Yeah, and now it's a dangerous geopolitical flashpoint. U.S. President Donald Trump has warned publicly that the U.S. is locked and loaded to intervene if the regime continues its violent crackdown. A crackdown that, tragically, has already resulted in at least 10 protester deaths.
So our mission in this deep dive is to serve as your guides to this material, to chart that rapid metamorphosis. We have sources detailing the specific financial failures, the radical and really surprising political demands coming from the streets, and the volatile international reactions. We're going to connect the Real's value directly to slogans calling for the return of the king.
Yeah.
When we talk about economic ruin, we have to start with the numbers because they are just staggering. The Iranian Rial plummeted to a record low, approximately 1.45 million to the US dollar by December 29th, 2025.
And this wasn't a slow slide.
No, not at all. The sources indicate the Rial lost roughly 40% of its value just since the conflict with Israel back in June of 2025.
Think about that. That's not a minor trade issue. It's an existential threat. You wake up one morning and nearly half of your life savings is just gone.
And that's exactly why this financial collapse instantly became a humanitarian disaster on the ground.
Exactly. The state statistics reported official inflation hit 42.2% in December. But, if you look at what people actually need to survive, the picture is terrifying.
Like food prices?
Food prices rose by 72% year on year. Health and medical goods, things you can't just stop buying, they increased by 50%.
Wow.
This collapse meant that, according to the resources we shared, nearly 70% of the Iranian population was living below the poverty line.
70%.
70%. The financial system didn't just have a heart attack. It effectively cut off oxygen to two-thirds of the country.
So if the people are suffocating, we need to understand why the air suddenly ran out. The sources point to two specific, massive external conflicts as the accelerators here. First, there was the 12-day war with the U.S. and Israel in June 2025. It targeted key infrastructure, specifically the Asalua region. For anyone unfamiliar, why is that one spot so critical to the Iranian state?
Because it is, arguably, the single most important economic target in the entire country.
The whole country.
The Asalua region houses the world's largest natural gas field. Before the war damage, this one facility was responsible for over half of the country's government income.
Half.
Over half. So if you're running a state where 50 cents of every dollar comes from one tap and that tap gets destroyed, as it did, you fundamentally cripple the government's ability to function. That was the first body blow.
And that damage was compounded just a few months later, which basically removed any chance of recovery.
Absolutely. In September 2025, the UN reimposed what are known as snapback sanctions.
We should probably unpack that term. It sounds dramatic.
It is. This wasn't just new pressure. Snapback means the sudden, automatic, and near-total reimposition of all previous sanctions that had been lifted. These measures instantly froze Iranian assets abroad and halted almost all legitimate international trade.
So the war damages the income source, and the sanctions cut off access to any other money.
Exactly. The economy was completely starved of resources from both ends.
And this environment leads us directly to the merchant revolt. This is where the political rupture really begins, isn't it?
It is. This collapse forced the influential bazaarists, the traditional shopkeepers, to initiate widespread strikes. especially in Tehran's Grand Bazaar.
And we need to pause on this because this isn't just a simple labor strike.
No, it's the systemic fracture that should terrify the regime more than anything. The Bazari class is deeply conservative, closely aligned with the clergy.
They helped bankroll the 1979 revolution.
They did. They've been the regime's stabilizers for over 4 decades. When they strike, it's not for politics. They shut down because the volatility made it impossible to price goods.
They couldn't do business.
Couldn't do business at all. They were facing certain bankruptcy if they stayed open. And when the historical bedrock of your system says the system is broken for business, it tells everyone else the regime can't even perform its most basic function.
That is the essential insight. That economic desperation became this clear, agonizing lens for the public to view the regime's foreign priorities. The protests didn't stay focused on currency rates for very long.
Not at all. People rapidly drew a direct, undeniable link between their own collapsing livelihood and the money the regime sends abroad.
And there was one slogan that really captured that shift.
Yes, one slogan that the sources say became central to the movement. Neither Gaza nor Lebanon, my life for Iran.
You can't get a more explicit condemnation of the theocracy's mission than that.
You can't. It directly targets and rejects the practice of funding proxy groups like Hamas and Hezbollah over the desperate needs of their own people. It connects the 72% rise in food prices right on their kitchen tables to the government's foreign wars.
And this crisis just shattered any remaining public faith in the system's ability to, fix itself. We saw President Pezeshkian, who was elected in 2024 on promises of reform, he was just unable to solve it.
And his big public acknowledgement that if we do not resolve the issue of people's livelihoods, we will end up in hell.
Yeah.
That was seen by many, according to the sources, not as honesty, but as just a colossal admission of political bankruptcy. The system had no answers left.
It basically confirmed that reformism is a dead end in Iran.
Completely. When students at Tehran's Shahid Beheshti University spoke out, they were explicit. They declared the criminal system would not be changed by reform or with false promises. The demand shifted from improving the state to demanding a total exit from it.
And what does that search for an exit look like? I think the most remarkable and frankly powerful finding in the source material is this deep historical search for stability. We are seeing a profound resurgence of explicitly monarchist slogans and symbols in the streets, a total rejection of the Islamic Republic's founding ideas.
Yes. Waving the lion and sun flag, the old symbol of the monarchy, you hear chants like, Javed Shah, long live the Shah, and Pahlavi will return.
And the most telling one, perhaps,
is the one honoring the dynasty's founder, Reza Shah, may your soul be blessed. This speaks volumes. Reza Shah, who ruled in the 1920s and 30s, is seen by these protesters as the architect of a secular nationalist state that put Iran first.
So this isn't just nostalgia, is it? It's a radical political statement.
It's the ultimate rejection. When people chant for the Pahlavi dynasty, they're saying 4 decades of theocracy and its economic devastation is so complete
that they prefer the old system.
They would prefer the comparative stability of the pre-1979 era. They are literally looking backward to reject the present. It shows that the collapse of the currency has made the population willing to entertain almost any alternative.
And the regime, facing demands that escalated from bread prices to calls for the return of the monarchy, reacted with predictable, absolute severity.
Yes, they met these deep-seated demands with extreme violence. Security forces deployed tear gas and live ammunition against shopkeepers and students.
And the tragic results are clear. By January 3rd, 2026, at least 10 protesters were confirmed killed,
including a 15-year-old child in asthma. It's just horrific.
The regime also tried to use these, pretty weak excuses to stifle dissent.
Very weak. On December 31st, the government ordered a nationwide business shutdown, officially claiming it was due to cold weather.
Cold weather.
Right. Analysts universally saw it as a desperate excuse to curb the large-scale demonstrations in the Bazari districts. They were terrified of their own base turning on them.
That brings us to the ultimate authority. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei issued his strongest public warning to try and get control back.
He did. He tried to divide the movement, making this distinction between legitimate protesters, whose economic demands he admitted were fair, and the violent rioters.
But by making that distinction, he's also giving a pretty clear directive to his forces, isn't he?
Absolutely. When he declared that rioters must be put in their place, he was effectively giving the security forces a green light for a much harsher crackdown. It's a classic totalitarian move. Acknowledge the pain, but label those demanding systemic change as criminals.
And he stuck to the playbook. blaming the entire collapse on the enemy, specifically the U.S. and Israel.
And those foreign adversaries were quick to return fire.
Almost immediately. The international reaction was swift and sharply confrontational. The most aggressive rhetoric came from the United States.
Yeah, President Donald Trump posted on social media that if Iran violently kills peaceful protesters, which is their custom, the United States of America will come to their rescue.
And then came the key phrase.
We are locked and loaded and ready to go. That's a direct threat of military intervention.
But the response from Israel was maybe even more provocative.
I think so. Israel's Mossad explicitly declared support, saying, "We are with you," not only from a distance and verbally, and they added,
"We are with you in the field."
"in the field." That suggests operational support, not just moral backing, which takes this whole confrontation far beyond just rhetoric.
And, unsurprisingly, Iranian officials responded aggressively.
They had to. High-ranking figures warned any U.S. or Israeli action would be met with a firmer and more severe response. They specifically threatened that U.S. bases and interests in the region will not see calm days.
So this confirms a very dangerous reality. The economic implosion has created this deep internal crisis and, at the same time, pushed military tensions to a new, dangerously volatile peak.
So what does this deep dive really tell us? What began with, the most basic economic act shopkeepers protesting has exposed profound, irreparable systemic weaknesses at the very core of the Islamic Republic.
And the focus shifted from economics to revolution because the pain proved something to the people.
It proved that the theocracy prioritizes ideological wars and foreign proxy funding over its own population's economic survival. That one realization was the fuse that drove everyone, from the regime's old Bazari allies to university students, to conclude that survival now means demanding the return of a secular state.
And why does this matter to you listening today beyond the borders of Iran? This deep dive shows that economic mismanagement in an ideology-driven totalitarian regime doesn't just lead to slow poverty. It accelerates political radicalization toward revolutionary goals with incredible speed.
That's right. The moment the state can no longer ensure the economic survival of its core supporters, in this case the merchant class, those groups immediately shift their demands to the total overthrow of the system. Economic collapse is the midwife of revolution.
And that leads to a crucial question for the future, one that goes way beyond the current crackdown.
It does. We've seen that this economic crisis triggered a profound shift away from the Islamic Republic, leading to explicit support for restoring the Pahlavi monarchy. We saw the slogans, the flags, the calls for Reza Shah. So this raises a crucial, unstable question for the future. If the current regime were to eventually fall, would that deep yearning for the comparative economic stability of the pre-revolutionary past translate into immediate, widespread acceptance of a return to the monarchy? Or would decades of suppressed political and economic aspirations prevent any simple restoration of the past? That unpredictable challenge is the shadow hanging over Iran and the world in the days ahead.